2 nights after Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, I had a nightmare. I woke up sweating. In the dream, I'd had my aqua kayak converted by a woman in a car shop into a road vehicle, and I was driving up a steep mountain on a dirt road. As I climbed higher and higher, I could see ahead a dangerous curve to the right, steep drop off to the left, and cars were stopped. I got out of my aqua kayak vehicle to walk ahead to see what the obstruction was. I passed people sitting in their cars looking downward, some of them weeping. When I got to the front of the cars, I saw a woman writhing on the ground near the edge of the cliff, screaming and thrashing as the edge of the road was giving way beneath her. And she was fighting against the broken chain link fence, all that was holding her from falling down the precipice, which she clearly wanted to do. Pebbles, dirt, and small stones were eroding off the cliff under the fence as she flailed, trying to get over them. It was too dangerous to go near her. The edge of the road was giving way. I turned in horror to go back to try to hide in my vehicle and heard the words, "Turn toward." I turned around, partially woke up, and was trying to think of who the woman was. Was she partly me, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the feminine, our country, the world? I let that go. So let's pause for a moment. We are all, internally and externally, at the edge of a precipice. Huge numbers of us are terribly sick and dying from COVID. The economy is tanking. People don't have enough to eat or pay their expenses. Kids can't go to school. Wildfires are devastating the West. Hurricanes are flooding the South, and the politics are really intense. We know the causes and conditions that led to this. As a country, we know our dark side. Part of us arrived and killed its inhabitants, enslaved many in our greed and hatred, underpaid workers and everyone else we could take advantage of, created poverty, misused the precious earth, and in addition, we take everything for granted. Of course, our country has a bright side, but we've also continued this darker side on a larger scale with larger numbers. How we got to the edge is no great mystery. As we understand causes and conditions, we realize the importance of our contributions toward wholesomeness, large and small. As I sunk back into the dream, the woman who was a more resourced me went over to the safe side of the dirt road, parallel to the screaming, thrashing part of me, sat down and started to sing, and gestured to people in the cars to come and sit in a circle so we could all sing together. I started out with the song Amazing Grace, realized not everybody knew that one, racked my brain to think of what we all might know, rejected Old MacDonald, and settled on Row, Row Your Boat. Life is but a dream. Would the thrashing, screaming woman roll toward us or roll over the cliff? We were offering her an option: community, love. Singing comes from the whole torso, from the body. Have you ever watched how a bird's whole body moves when it sings? We're the same. We have to enliven ourselves to sing. We have to listen to each other to sing in unison. We were pouring ourselves into being. What would the woman at the edge do? Let's hit the pause button again. First of all, it's important to let the suffering woman make her own choice without our judgment. Can we see how our own conditioning, Judeo-Christian for most of us, influences what we think the distraught woman should do? Can we see our own fear of death? Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, a well-known Tibetan teacher, advises us that we should always realize in the moment our level of intelligence is quite mundane. We do not yet have an all-encompassing mind. We have a very limited view. So there are definitely going to be things that our ordinary, mundane consciousness cannot experience directly. But that does not mean these things do not exist. Which reminds me of a Zen koan. Things are not as they seem, nor are they different. An important part of this story is being okay with not knowing the outcome. We long for certainty, and it's not there. The truth is we live on shifting sands. It's all very impermanent. The house, outbuildings, and cars of a Dharma teacher friend of mine, Carla, in Santa Cruz, burned to the ground. She and her partner barely got out in time. They lost everything. Another friend started a GoFundMe and raised enough money in 3 days to tide them over until FEMA kicks in. Carla said that the outpouring of love and generosity from so many people was incredibly helpful in mitigating the trauma. In a way, Carla was able to roll back from the edge into the circle of instant community, singing her in. A good story from the suttas about shifting sands and the speed of impermanence and a good death is the story of Bahiya. Bahiya was told by a deva, who's kind of a Buddhist angel, to go quickly and find the Buddha in order to get teaching from him. Time was of the essence. Bahiya traveled far, found the Buddha, threw himself at the Buddha's feet, and asked for teaching. The Buddha at that moment was going among houses for alms. And so he said, "It's an unsuitable time, Bahiya. We have entered among the houses for alms food." A second time, Bahiya said to the Buddha, "It's difficult to know for certain, Reverend Sir, how long the Lord will live or how long I will live. Teach me Dhamma, Lord. Teach me Dhamma so that it will be for my good and happiness for a long time." A second time, the Buddha said to Bahiya, "It's an unsuitable time, Bahiya. We have entered among the houses for alms food." And a third time, Bahiya said to the Buddha, "It's difficult to know for certain, etc. Teach me Dhamma." Herein, Bahiya, you should train yourself thus. In the seen will be merely what is seen. In the heard, that's hearing, will be merely what is heard. In the sensed will be merely what is sensed. In the cognized will be merely what is cognized. In this way, you should train yourself, Bahiya. Now, through this brief, you should train yourself Bahiya. When Bahiya for you in the seen is merely what is seen, in the cognized is merely what is cognized, then Bahiya you will not be with that. When Bahiya you are not with that, then Bahiya you will not be in that. When Bahiya you are not in that, you will be neither here nor beyond, nor in between the two. Just this is the end of suffering. Now, through this brief Dhamma teaching, the mind of Bahiya was immediately freed from the taints without grasping. Then the Buddha, having instructed Bahiya with this brief instruction, went away. Not long after the Buddha's departure, a cow with a young calf attacked Bahiya and killed him. The rest of the story is that with the Buddha's teaching, Bahiya had attained enlightenment and was given a burial befitting his new status. The way I understand this teaching to Bahiya is to not add one's own view or prejudices or stories as overlays to seeing and thinking. For example, you might be outside and a shape goes by. So immediately, this home entertainment system starts. Yak, 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 yak. Oh, that's a robin. Oh, I don't understand why robins don't eat from my bird feeder. They just, yada, yada, just the proliferation. So there are times when we might choose to do that. And there are times when we don't need to do that. So these stories or overlays to our seeing and thinking, it's like the phrase, add nothing to this moment. In other words, the moment is just the moment. Add nothing at all to the data of sensory experience. It's a helpful way to train our minds. This is also called bare attention or non-reactive awareness. Elsewhere in the suttas, the Buddha says, not impassioned with forms. Seeing a form with mindfulness firm, dispassioned in mind, one knows and doesn't remain fastened there. While one is seeing a form and even experiencing feeling, it falls away and doesn't accumulate. Thus one fares mindfully, thus not amassing stress. One is said to be in the presence of unbinding. So that's what we're after, the unbinding. For clarity, so we can see more clearly. Important words in that are mindfulness and paying attention without judgment, and dispassion, not being caught, being equanimous. This is how to train for less stress. Bring nothing to this moment. So, back at the cliff, all of the people in cars suffered at witnessing the trauma, at having to hold the not knowing the outcome, but then realizing the strength of community to give that woman an option. They took the shot at turning the suffering into compassion for themselves and for the distraught woman. And as we know, options or choices are crucial. Viktor Frankl's understanding that even in dire circumstances, sometimes it's the ability to choose that gives meaning to be able to go on. He saw that the ability of a starving man to give to another his last morsel of food enabled the starving man to continue living. It opened his heart. So maybe in part, it's the open-hearted generosity our country lacks now. Children are naturally generous, but it's not a quality we cultivate here. However, in Asian Buddhist countries, one way the children are taught generosity is when parents give them the food for them to put in the alms bowl. So that's the gesture, putting the food in the alms bowl. Look around. Well, first do that gesture and see how it feels. And then look around and do this gesture toward other people. And see how that feels. Just look at another person and do that gesture. It helps foster a sense of us rather than the me, me, my, mine, I. It's been a long time now since I've been in Peru. But when I was there, I observed village men with bulldozers turning up the potato crop, which would be shared with everyone in the village. No one goes hungry. May people in our country be more aware of the option of more open-heartedness toward ourselves and others. So let's pause and sit for a moment. We'll see if there are any questions. So here we all are, paying attention together and with others, figuring out how we can live our lives in more heartfelt ways. Feeling our connection and sending each other best wishes. And just dropping back into a light meditation as we just close here, wishing each of ourselves well. Wishing those who are close to you and you love, wishing them well. And then effortlessly extending those good wishes. May I and all beings be happy and light of heart. May I and all beings be healthy, be strong of body. May I and all beings be peaceful, have the ease of well-being. May we all be safe. And may the merit of our practice benefit all.